My name is Anne Michaels. I'm reading excerpts from my novel, Held. We know life is finite. Why should we believe death lasts forever? To the historian, every battlefield is different. To the philosopher, every battlefield is the same. War has ever redefined the battlefield. We no longer pretend to fight on designated ground. Instead, recognize the essential substratum where war has always been fought. Exactly where we live. Exactly where we've always believed we were sheltered, even sacredly so. The places we sleep and wake, feed ourselves, love each other. The apartment block, the school, the nursing home. Citizens ingesting the blast and instantly cast in micronized concrete, rigid as ancient Pompeians in volcanic ash. Snipers, barrel bombs, the strategic bombing of hospitals to prove how senseless it is to save lives in a war zone, senseless as stopping up a hole in the hull of a ship at the bottom of the sea. What history is war writing in our bodies now? War fought by citizens whose muscles have never before held a gun or passed a child overhead, hand to hand, to a mother in a train car, crammed immobile with refugees. The war being written in these bodies, in this child's body, will be read as war has always been read, stranger to stranger, parent to child, lover to lover. And even if it is possible to return to one city, even if one has never left, it will be a history told as it has always been told, far from home. What was Alan's task? To write what no one could bear to read. What was anyone's task? To endure the truth, to act upon it. But even empathy, compassion, was to feel and think in terms of separation. And Alan could only feel and think now in terms of entirety, of humanity as a single organism, a single entity of cause and consequence, the human union of breathing and being we are born to. A man's brain spraying across your face, a baby in the womb, a bullet hole in its forehead, exsanguination, decapitation, the physics of ballistics in human bone and tissue. Soldiers praying for a successful massacre. Do you think it's possible, Mara asked, for good to survive long enough to outlast, to wait, to endure, while evil consumes itself? It was a philosopher's question, a parent's question, a lover's question. Was it a doctor's question? Alan wasn't sure. No, he said. He knew no one could get in or out now. She knew it too. It was a secret between them that they both knew the same, failure, that even if they could go back, there or elsewhere, they would not last a day. It would be a kind of suicide. They were no longer ice cold. Would it always feel like failure? They lay beside each other in the dark. Alan knew with all his soul that he loved her. Maybe, he said. She had made her husband a hot bath. She had slipped into the water behind him and held him. He was so thin now. They had sat drowsily together in the steaming water as they used to before he was ill. In the span of time it had taken for the water to cool, so silently, so peacefully, leaning against her. He had died. His stillness, an inexpressible violation. She knew that she and her husband had had more time in the end than most. She knew it was everything not to die alone, not to be taken brutally by force. She could never explain. She could never imagine a time when she would be able to explain all he was to her. Leah had drawn a blanket over him. She had dressed. She had made room for herself and lain down next to him. What could she give him now? She knew what he would want for her, that stillness might grow to peace. Not still, held. Sometimes she turned and her father was next to her, so close that if he were alive, she would feel his breath in her hair. She still longed for him, but his quiet presence, when it came, did not feel conjured by her longing. She did not need to name it or explain it. She knew that humans have felt this always, as simple as seeing deer at the edge of the forest, or knowing it has snowed overnight by the change of light in the bedroom when you wake, something ordinarily perceivable. No need to explain it, any more than one needed to explain any of our senses, hearing or tasting or feeling the wind. The slow evolution of perception. The first vertebrates to move from water to land, beginning to grow what would become eardrums, detecting low frequencies as vibrations in their heads. The photosensitive patch evolving into the pinhole eye and socket, from light-sensitive sponges to the eye cup of the Tripidalia cystophora, the diversity of mollusk eyes, birds with their 4 visual pigments, their astonishing distance acuity, a flicker fusion ratio to detect the motion of sun and moon crossing the horizon. When we grew eyes, did others of our kind believe us mad for what we saw? Perhaps it simply begins like this, always, just as she reaches the same turn of the path where it bends into the trees. His hand finds hers.